Hi, everyone. I'm David Barberisi. This is the inaugural episode of my show. Here I'm going to share my origin story, or at least a lot of it, and then share what to expect from this podcast going forward. So, thanks for listening, and I hope it is inspiring and empowering. And yeah, here we go. So, first thing, the origin story. I'm going to warn that it's going to start out really heavy, but yeah, it gets better because you get to the present moment. So, just kind of sharing that, and then yeah, I'm going to go into sort of the different things that I like talking about and what I'm going to be talking about in future episodes. When I was born, I was given a diagnosis of a so called rare genetic defect called pycnodysostosис. I had a few very interesting physical symptoms. Obvious ones being short stature. I'm 4 foot 10 inches tall. Sorry for the centimeters, people, because I don't have the conversion. I have some interesting physical skull things going on. With the shape, and then, for example, the soft spot on my head did not close. Have some interesting body proportion stuff, and probably some other symptoms that like I don't even know about because I've just this is the only way I've known things. It's been all my life. Um, One of the big ones that has shaped me is that my bones are they've said to be too dense, which makes them brittle. So they tend to break under normal use, or they have in the past. Got to make sure to keep my language good there. Yeah, I like the analogy of like it's a tree in the wind, in that the tree needs to be flexible enough to blow in the wind. And if it's too rigid, it breaks. And I think this is great because in a lot of my life, there's some rigidity, and I'm learning to be a little more spontaneous and kind of go with go with the flow or the wind, if we want to keep with that analogy. So yeah, growing up, I had multiple bone breaks. Um, Happened frequently. I've broken each leg multiple times. I've broken my foot. I've broken each collarbone once. And this was all doing pretty normal stuff. So in first grade, I was running in the backyard and I tripped and fell and I broke my leg. And I remember the story was that we were at the hospital and the people working there kept asking me questions and like asking my parents because like it sounded like such an unrealistic story. Like they thought that there was abuse or something there, and supposedly the story is that I just got really fed up with that, and I was just like, that's what happened. um which probably sounds like a thing I would do. um yeah, so that was the first time. A lot of the other times tend to blend together in my mind. So like I don't even remember all the reasons or all the things that happened. But yeah, so some of the other times, one time my sister jumped on my back for a piggyback ride and I broke my leg. Another time I slipped getting out of the shower and broke my leg. Another time I sat on my foot and broke that. And then, yeah, with the collarbone experience, I was bench pressing the bar and yeah, my collarbone broke. One time, at least one time, but one time I probably really deserved it. And so this was, we had a 4 foot swimming pool above ground. You're not supposed to dive and jump into those things. And my sister was in an inflatable boat. And my game plan was to jump from the deck to the boat to like knock her out of the boat. And I missed in my calculations there. And so I decided to land on my feet. So I landed on my feet in the pool, broke through the tibia and fibula on my left leg. So that was probably the worst one. And that was me actually doing something stupid. So maybe I deserve that. Um, yeah, so that's the bone experience. There's also the dental experience where like my teeth don't really line up. They kind of grow in like all the different directions and do whatever they want to do. So they don't touch. And when I would go to see the dentist, if it was a new dentist or whatever, they would kind of have a look of shock and then ask me, "How do you eat?" And I don't know how to answer that question because somehow I figured out how to eat and no one knows. I think I probably like swallow a whole lot of large pieces of food is my probable guess there. Um, yeah, and then like the doctor's experience. Uh, Usually they would say something was wrong with me, even though like maybe I didn't feel like something was wrong with me. At the younger ages, and then they would want to do different interventions and things, and then after those, I wouldn't really feel like there was an improvement. So like I wasn't kind of getting any results or anything. Yeah, so getting into kind of the feelings of that, like, yeah, I felt very broken or wrong or defective. I was angry with my body, like there was bad luck or destiny or a curse, and like all these kinds of stories. Kind of the defeat of this keeps happening, and that like the world is unsafe. Because like if it's happening, for normal everyday things, like I don't know how to adapt to that. Like, obviously don't jump in the shallow pool, but like, slipping getting out of the shower does, I didn't stop showering. Um, so the like not having an idea of like even how to like manage this or to like have this not happen. There were some times I think when I was in denial where like it would happen and I knew the feeling of breaking a bone and I would just kind of walk on it and try to pretend like it wasn't happening because I definitely didn't want it happening. Didn't want it to be true. And also, it would usually be at the beginning of summer. And I don't know, we didn't have waterproof casts back then. So usually it would kind of ruin the summer. Because, yeah, I couldn't get the cast wet and whatever. So kids these days are spoiled with their waterproof cast. Um, so yeah, and then yeah, telling the story about relationships. So this was a whole lot of like with the dating thing, like middle school, high school, probably even into college, with the like, statistically girls don't want to date guys who are shorter than them or whatever. And, like kind of holding on to that stuff and the like, oh, I'm not attractive and the um even with the like genetics piece of like, oh, I don't want to have kids because I don't want to pass this down, like the dramatic like this ends with me kind of thing. And the like, oh, even if it was like if it was passed down, this like idea of I can't handle this again, like I don't want to go through this with someone else. um so like carrying a whole lot of that, a whole lot of story around that, and then it led to me like not really trying to date, or like it was really self-fulfilling there. um so like, yeah, I didn't really try anything, or I didn't, yeah, make any efforts there. It was just like, this isn't for me, like everyone else gets to have cool things and I don't get to have that. um so there's a lot of stories around that. And yeah, the mental health experience. I don't think it was really until high school or college, and definitely into adulthood, that like the depression part kind of landed. Which I would also say like maybe the childhood stuff I don't really have as many memories of, or I don't have that part like fully in my mind. And I have a totally different perspective on mental health now as well, and that will be something that I'll dig into later. So yeah, just feeling pretty awful. Yeah, high school, college, and up situation. Yeah, and in 2001, I was graduating from high school, and my parents split up. And a few months later, my dad killed himself. So I was going through graduating high school and that and that, and then getting into college and everything, and dealing with all of the like family stuff. And it was obviously a very difficult time. And also, this is kind of one of the things where I'm saying this and I don't really have the full set of emotions for it or the emotional connection right now. So I'm just kind of stating that out loud as like an interesting observation of, I'm not, maybe not fully in touch with that experience. And yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that. I just wanted to kind of call that out here. So, yeah, college sucked. And I was a computer science major for 3.5 years. And then I kind of had an experience and was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And um, yeah, I want to say like an early midlife crisis or something. Um, and yeah, I changed majors to information technology, which instead of a science degree, it's a business degree. So I took 5.5 years on college, and probably a lot of that was just to avoid the like being a grown up part. But yeah, I graduated there, and then I moved to Washington D.C. for work as a software engineer. And yeah, I was very depressed for a whole lot of that phase. My diet consisted of lean cuisines, ramen noodles, beer, and bar food. And yeah, I was just kind of working and like I was very high functioning and everything. And I was working, going home and playing video games, getting drunk, um, not really having meaning to anything. And yeah, I was just like, oh, I got to survive another day. Just got to kind of get through this. Um, a lot of darkness and moments in there that maybe I'll get into in a later episode, but just this is part of the overview. Yeah, some not awesome relational stuff. Like having friendships during drunk times, but then like during sober times, things being a little different. And also, yeah, just having really like messy situations going on there. Yeah. And other pieces that I'm kind of skipping over for now. So, that's that. Eventually I saw a therapist, because yeah, there was a dark moment or a couple dark moments, and I don't know, eventually like had the drive to do that. Uh, Later led me to a psychiatrist, and I was prescribed an antidepressant, which I was on for about a decade. And the feeling for me was that it was helping me manage. I think therapy was kind of like this too. Like it was helping me manage. But the antidepressant was like, before that, I was feeling very high highs and very low lows. And while I was on the antidepressant, it seemed to like reduce the spectrum of the extremes. So I was kind of more in the middle, and I was okay because I could manage that and my mood was predictable. So that was my experience of that. I did have 1 year where I stopped drinking, um, and things kind of improved. And but then I went back to it because I didn't really like solve the original reason I was drinking. Um, okay, so cool. That's all the heavy stuff, or a lot of the heavy stuff. So now we're going to move into a little more, yeah, the uplifting part. Um, I don't know what the catalyst was. Like, there wasn't a single event, and it wasn't like I was at rock bottom or anything, because I had been at rock bottom like previous times, and I was like kind of barely pulling myself out. But yeah, at some point around 2017, I just didn't want to be on the antidepressant anymore. And I finally went and got some blood work done, and some numbers sucked, according to them. And I was referred to a health coach, and we worked on diet and mindset and sort of the basics, like sleeping at normal times, going outside, uh, she, she practically had to beg me to go outside because I was like, I don't like, why do I want to go outside? That doesn't, I got screens and beer and everything. So yeah, I started to go outside, get away from screens, making replacements of like toxic stuff with like less toxic stuff. And yeah, within a year, I got my blood work again and it was like super awesome. Um, I lost about 40 pounds, which is a huge percentage. I felt much better. The phrase that comes to mind is that the world got brighter. I started to face some of my fears. Like I didn't really like traveling alone and because of anxiety and just like nervousness and everything. And, like I just wasn't doing a whole lot of other stuff, especially not sober. So yeah, I started meeting people. I started going to events. Yep, hanging out in sober land more. And yeah, it felt like actually participating in my own life, starting to find some meaning and purpose. And yeah, just feeling much better. So 2018 and 2019, I was getting involved more in the natural health, the biohacking, the functional medicine, all the other labels and words, just kind of researching. I had this drive of like, wow, I feel so much better right now than I've ever felt before. Like, how much further can I go? How far can I take this? So just kept learning and learning. More of it was making sense to me. And yeah, so I was off the antidepressant, I think within the year, like 2018. I think the other lifestyle changes helped and made that a lot better for me. And I feel very fortunate because I know it's incredibly difficult for a lot of people. So I, I don't know what it is or like why me, like why I can do this. But yeah, just kind of really emphasize that it's possible. Um, yeah, by 2019, I knew I needed to leave my job. I was a software engineer at a business to business media company, and the work was supporting like the pharma industry and the fake food industry and the healthcare industry and like all the industries that are huge and have money and everything. But I was coming to the realization that I was doing the opposite of all the things that they were supporting, and I was getting better. And, I was just feeling more and more misaligned. I knew these industries weren't helping people. And so, I was starting to feel that nudge there. Yeah, and then I was going to events like health events or yeah, I was going to like sound baths and breath work and doing all that kind of stuff. Um, Talking to people, making new friends, having different kinds of connections that I hadn't had before. And I was talking to people who were recovering or resolving their so-called chronic or incurable health problems. And I was getting more curious, wondering kind of like what's up here, like what is this about? And so talking to more and more people, hearing about this, researching, learning, uh, seeing like so many other possibilities in terms of health. And yeah, then the 2020 times hit, kind of hit me in the face with, as it did for a lot of people, but specifically for me with the fact that most of society and the work I was doing are not aligned with my values and how I want to live my life and how I want others to live their lives. So there's some dark times there, yeah, around the relational stuff, around loneliness and isolation, around just realizing how, yeah, misaligned, that word keeps coming up, how misaligned everything really was. Just kind of bumping into all of that. Yeah, the relational issues, as well as I was connecting and meeting people in ways that I had never really done before. Like, yeah, again, especially in not while sober. And so like having different experiences there and some challenges. And one thing that I think is interesting that I noticed that I think is important to call out is without the antidepressant, the emotional high highs and low lows returned. Like the low lows aren't as low as they used to be, but like the full range came back. The stuff I numbed earlier in my life came back for me to navigate. And so I feel like that's an important point to like give people, when we're like taking away some of our coping mechanisms or ways to numb. So full spectrum of emotions came back, and I had some tools for it, but I didn't really have the tools for it. And I would say to this day, I'm still like learning how to do the emotions thing. Because yeah, when I remove the coping mechanisms, and then I have to go kind of sit with myself and all that. So that was happening during the 2020 times when there were plenty of other emotional things going on. Yeah. Yeah, and then the other piece of that was like during that time I was ready to be more of a human and kind of come out of the shell or the cave or the shell in the cave, and be more with people and connect more. And I felt like I was running in one direction and the rest of the entire society was running in the opposite direction. And I really wanted to be like, hey, I just came from there, please don't go there. Yeah, I kept going to more events like health and freedom stuff. I met really awesome people, really inspiring people. I was making lots of connections and having a lot more depth in my life than what I've ever really had before. Which, yeah, was bringing up its own challenges, but yeah, just having experiences that were making my life a lot more fuller. So 2022, at the end of the year, I woke up one day and just decided I'm ready to move out of DC. It no longer felt scary. And I just said, it's happening. So a few days later, I woke up and I decided, I'm leaving the job too. I probably would not recommend that for other people right now, but that's what I did. And yeah, I moved back to my hometown of Norfolk, Virginia, and I left the job and I said, all the things that aren't serving me, I'm leaving them behind with 2022. And in 2023, I'm leaving everything open and, welcoming in the next chapter. So that happened. Not as super fun as I was hoping, but it's a little bit of where I am. Still going to things, events, festivals, taking courses, learning from mentors, and forming my new vocation, what I want to be when I grow up, and who I want to help, and what I want to do, and all those things. So all that's on the table, and yeah, so I'm going to talk about some of that. It's where I am now, and I'll share some of the topics that I want to talk about in this show and some of the things I want to do to support others and for others to support me. So here's sort of the topics or my main passions and things I like talking about. Health is a big one. So I've been learning from a number of mentors, and I like to share about the terrain paradigm of health. And this is the idea that we're not at war with microbes or parasites or any other things. It's all us. We're all in symbiotic relationship with nature because we are nature. So everything's serving a purpose, and we don't need to be afraid of all the things. And a lot of it, almost all of it, is in our control. So that is the short version of terrain, and so I'm going to go into that in a lot more details in all the future episodes. Um, yeah, so one of my goals is to support you and support others with the education and the practical application of terrain. I do it through this lens. I think it can be simple and fun. I want to share what's possible in terms of the health space and how we can unravel and rewrite our existing health stories. About genes, germs, bad luck, whatever story, your labels, your tests, like all that stuff. So, looking at it through that lens, um, also including the lens of ancestral health, which I learned about the Weston A. Price Foundation, and I love their their dietary principles. They're not super dogmatic on you can't eat these things, but it's like how to source foods, how to prepare them correctly, all from the lens of what traditional people did. So want to support you with that, with your story, the mental health thing, the genetics thing. I no longer believe in all of those stories. And I'll talk about how I've come to those conclusions. They're not true from a like evidential point of view, and they're not useful either. So like they don't fit into either bucket. So it's kind of a like, what are we doing here other than, someone told us a thing. So I want to share in the health conversations, support with that. Um, and yeah, simplify it, make it fun, make it more joyful. Right now, it's way too complicated, and a lot of it's wrong, even on the holistic side. So I want to sort that out, show you guys how I think about things, help you to figure more of this out and be empowered for yourself so you understand how these pieces all kind of work together. Second topic, how to human. So this is like I'm talking about the relational things, the social things, the emotions, the human connection. Yeah, the like things that I feel like I maybe didn't pick up at earlier ages. And then now I'm kind of relearning or remembering or maybe even learning for the first time how to do those things. Yeah, and still to this day, this one's kind of a fresh one, or not, or still ongoing. So yeah, talking about community connection, navigating these things, and like learning how to make it a little more natural and easy. Third topic, technology, and this feeds into the health thing. This feeds into the humaning thing and so on. Yeah, I grew up in front of screens, and for me, it wasn't phones and tablets and stuff we could carry around. It was stuff in front of, it wasn't mobile, except for like a Game Boy or something. And I could see how that impacted my humaning skills or my social things. And I can clearly see how that's, I'm going to say, messing with the kids. I don't think the adults are faring much better with it. So, like, I can really see this, and I want this as a warning sign of like, oh, I'm trying to undo the detrimental effects for me, and for me, it wasn't even that severe. Um, so just to kind of throw that out, and I can have different conversations about um, sort of the privacy aspect and the business aspect, and so kind of putting all those threads together of all layers of technology. I like to talk about AI and maybe inappropriate and appropriate uses of it and where I land on all those things. But yeah, mostly the health thing of like they're useful tools, and I think there are appropriate uses, and I think we need to have those conversations and to be a lot more deliberate with technology. Fourth thing I really like talking about is voluntarism. So, this is the philosophy that there are no rulers. This is a morality issue to me. Um, that we don't need government. Government is actually not legitimate. Nobody has the moral authority to rule over anyone else. And so I want to talk about all the details of that, the morality behind it, the practical application, um, all the different pieces of that. Like the idea of we need to do a lot of inner work in order to like build our maturity for interacting with each other. This comes back to the community and connection piece. We kind of got to deal with our own stuff so that we can live peacefully with each other. And yeah, I think this is just our natural state, but there's a lot of conditioning around it to make us think that we need parental figures to tell us what to do and to protect us and all that. So, love that topic. I think it's very, very important. I think more of us need to understand it and need to really sit with it because it's huge. The fifth topic, how do we think about things? How do we know things? Questioning everything. How do we develop principles and frameworks of how to live? How do we stick with those principles? How do we think? Again, the stories, the nuanced conversations. Yeah, so I've been told I have a very unique way of thinking about and communicating things. And so I'm going to explain how I see the world. Um, and hopefully that's really interesting and maybe gets you to think about things in a different way. And then, yeah, the sixth kind of bucket of topic things is just my thoughts on everything else that doesn't fit into the other buckets. Because, yeah, I'm just going to like go on different topics, things that I'm learning, things that I am thinking about, and see where I go from there. So, kind of the like, I want to talk about everything. So, if you like my perspective so far and the way that I'm communicating and thinking about stuff, like, yeah, I'll just kind of go all over the place with everything. So, that's my plan. Thanks for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it and got to know me better and have an idea of what's to come. Please subscribe to the podcast, visit healingoctopus.com, or check me out on Instagram, Healing Octopus, probably other socials. Join me on the Telegram group and subscribe to my email list. And I also have a Substack, and I probably have other things. So click all the links to stay up to date on what I'm up to and my offerings and all kinds of other fun stuff. And yeah, until next time, take care.